Hi, I'm Sabrina, and this is the final part of my 3-part series on food sustainability. Now it's time to hear from an expert. I spoke to Charlie Kingsley about how we can be more sustainable when it comes to food waste.
My name is Charlie Kingsley. I'm a corporate sustainability manager for a company called Suntory Beverage and Food, Great Britain and Ireland.
Okay, so the perfect person to ask these questions.
Well, I'll do my best.
So I recently found out that 9.5 million tons of food is wasted every year, which is enough to feed 30 million people. Why do you think so much food is getting wasted?
It's a really good question, and food waste is such a big carbon emitter, and it's something which I think we're all trying to reduce. I think there's lots of reasons why it's so high. I think infrastructure out there, having the right bins to put your food waste in, and having the right education as well to know exactly what is food waste, what isn't food waste, and what as a consumer you can do to actually help.
Yeah, and I even recently said this, that when the food bins were introduced, that's when I really saw how much food was getting wasted in my household. And you spoke about what we can do and change, so how can we help stop wasting less food?
So, there's different methods in which you can try and stop food waste. I think in reality there's always going to be some food waste. It's always going to be there, but it's trying to manage that food waste in a way which is better for the environment, I think, is really, really key. I batch cook quite a lot because I think if you're cooking for smaller size meals, you're always going to get offcuts, which you will put in the bin typically. So by batch cooking and using all the ingredients that you do buy and then freezing off different portions is a way in which you can try and reduce your food waste. There's also an app that I use called Olio, and it connects all the communities around in the households that you live in to basically provide food or discarded food which you're not wanting anymore to your local community so they can have it for free. So it's a good way if you've got lots of fruit and veg which is on its way out but you're not going to eat, perhaps you're about to go on holiday, you can donate it through this app, and you can go to your local neighbour and donate that food for free. So they get free food and you're reducing food waste, so it's a win-win.
Those are really good tips. Definitely going to download the app. Now, if we look at the food industry as a whole, not just when it comes to food waste, how can we be more sustainable there?
So, in terms of the whole food industry, there is a big misconception, I would say, that buying locally has a huge impact in terms of reducing your footprint. And don't get me wrong, it does reduce your footprint, but when you look at the bigger context and what food is made up of in their carbon emissions, the vast majority of it comes from on-farm emissions, and therefore choosing exactly what you're going to buy to put into your meal instead of looking at where it's going to be sourced from will have a much, much bigger impact.
Okay, interesting. So now, having all the tips that you just said, and let's say we implement that, what could be the benefits of doing all of that for our future?
So, the biggest benefit is to reduce our carbon emissions. So the food industry actually is one of the biggest carbon emitters in the world. So we have around 26% of global emissions come from the food industry. So it's huge. And there are different ways in which we can try and reduce this. There are areas in the supply chain. Switching from conventional farming to regenerative farming is a way in which we are slowly shifting towards a more sustainable food supply chain. But at the consumer level, the biggest impact that we can do is to incorporate more plants into our diets and to reduce the amount of meat into our diets as well, and particularly those ruminant meats. And what I mean by ruminant meat is beef and sheep, basically, who produce a huge amount of methane, which is a really potent greenhouse gas. So even just switching those meats to less carbon emitting meats like chicken and pork can have such a big impact. So I think a lot of people have a preconception that if you're wanting to be or having a really sustainable diet, you need to be vegan or you need to be vegetarian. And if you can, that's obviously great, but it's typically not needed. If you're wanting to make a huge impact, you can do that by switching your meats for more sustainable meats and incorporating more plants into your diet to actually reduce your footprint in a sustainable manner. So That's a really, really big element, and obviously food waste as well. If you're if you're wanting to reduce your footprint even further, just thinking about where your waste is going and trying to reduce the waste in the first place. And secondly, if you are going to have waste, putting it into the right bin to make sure it gets disposed of correctly.
I really love that because I feel like the tips that you just mentioned are really achievable, because like you said, you don't have to just switch from a meat eater to vegan. You can make these small steps which can make a big impact.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Charlie. If you were inspired by Charlie, head to our website where we feature our mentors who specialize in tackling environmental issues and supporting social action. In conclusion, I hope you've discovered some new ways on how we can become more sustainable when it comes to the food industry. Here are some additional quick sets I recommend you watch to build up those credits. Climate Anxiety Quick Set, What is Sustainability in Fashion, Rock Stars of Social Change.